Hey there, Hitchhikers, mindlessbile here, and I've been having a bit of a bad week. After being stung twice on the leg by a wasp and getting a jury summons in the mail, I found out that No Man's Sky has been delayed by 3 days till August 12th on PC, which means me. But on the bright side, they officially released the trophy list, which is kind of small, only 23. I'm kind of wondering if it was just a little teaser and there's some more. But going through the titles, I realized that I recognized a lot of the names of the trophies and that I'd read a lot of the books and watched a lot of the movies that they kind of reference, and I wanted to share them with you. Now, I am not going to tell you what it takes to get the achievements. If you want to look into that and look at the actual achievement list itself, I'll be putting the link in my description. But I'm just going to go over the names and where they got their names from. Now, starting off, we get my favorite. It's a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference, and the trophy name is Total Perspective Vortex. Now, the Total Perspective Vortex was a machine that was made with the intentions of creating an entire universe based off of a single piece of matter. In the case of this universe, they used a piece of fairy cake. What it ended up being used as was a torture device, and it was taken to the planet Frogstar B. And what would happen when somebody was placed inside of this vortex is it would create a universe in front of them, and it would show them their place in it as a teeny tiny little dot with a sign next to it that says, "This is you." And the results of this on most people was more or less a soul mind-shattering shock that, more or less left them a burnout shell. The only person to survive this, funnily enough, was the former president of the galaxy, Zaphod Beeblebrox, who went inside the machine. Machine told him that he was in fact the center of the universe, which didn't surprise him in the least, and he went on to eat the piece of fairy cake. I love the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Next, we have another very easy one, and one that probably most people will recognize, A Scanner Darkly, which is a very popular cult film, which was written by Philip K. Dick. I'm not going to talk about this movie itself or what the movie is about or the book is about, but I would like to make a special note about Philip K. Dick, because poor Mr. Dick was never given any recognition until after he died. Much like H.P. Lovecraft, he was kind of overshadowed by other writers and was kind of considered as a pulp fiction B-style writer. And it wasn't until he died that they started making a crap ton of films off of his work. I honestly think that more movies were made off of his work than any other science fiction author. Some of the other movies that you will all obviously know would be Minority Report, Screamers, Total Recall, and perhaps his most famous, Blade Runner. Now, the next two trophies are references to the author Isaac Asimov. He was one of the writers who kind of overshadowed Dick. There was a group of three of them, Arthur C. Clarke, Isaac Asimov, and Robert Heinlein. They were more or less considered the top of their field on hard science fiction. And the next two trophies are named after his two kind of greatest series. The first one is The Stars Like Dust, which is a novel in the Empire series. And the next is Foundation, which is the first book in the Foundation series. Another great series by him is the I, Robot series as well, for anyone interested in checking out his work. Next, we have another Hitchhiker's Guide reference. We have the Babel 17. Now, I don't understand the 17, but the Babel is an obvious reference to the Babel fish. Now, in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the Babel fish was a small, leech-like fish that you stuck inside of your ear, and that more or less ate the matter, the sound waves that other beings were speaking towards you, and then it would translate crap into your brain what it was saying in your language. So it basically had the effect of translating everybody for everybody. So there was no longer any language barriers in the universe. And because of that, he created more countless bloody wars than any other thing in the universe itself. Next, we have Contact, which is an obvious reference to the movie. And I don't know, I probably screwed up. There's probably a book off of this first before there was a movie, because it was one of the more kind of intelligent sci-fi movies of the time. But I've never actually watched it, to tell you the truth, so I don't know much about it. Next, we have one that I really don't kind of get. It's use of weapons. I'm sure it was something somebody said in some movie or some book, and I'm sure I've heard it before, but I just don't know what it is. Anyone who does, I'd be happy if you put it in the comments to kind of let me know, because I'm curious, and it seems like every other thing here has meaning, and this one does not. The next trophy is The Star Beast, which is a Robert Heinlein novel about a young boy with an alien pet who starts to grow to dinosaur proportions. After that, we have The Longest Voyage, one I have not read, by Poul Anderson, about a distant planet where the people have finally gotten to the point where they've become advanced enough to want to explore their planet, and they begin to circumnavigate it. Doing so, they find a island with a people on it who claim to have a prophet that has fallen from the stars. After that, we have the trophy, The Space Merchants, another one I'm not familiar with. This is written by Frederic, Poul, and Cyril M. Kornbluth, and this is about a world that has become so overpopulated that the businesses have overthrown the government, and the citizens are now addicted to their products through brainwashing and through drug use, and more or less forced to the state's total goal is to keep the business running, and meanwhile starve the people of the things that they actually need, like food and water, etc. Another one I've never heard of, The Languages of Poul, and I found absolutely nothing on this one, not wiki, not anywhere, no like real good descriptions, but it's by Jack Vance. The next one was a great obvious for me. It's the short story Who Goes There by John W. Campbell Jr., and this was the basis for the 1951 film, or could be 53, I don't know, I have it, it's one of my favorites, The Thing from Another World. And this was remade by John Carpenter in the 1980s as John Carpenter's The Thing, and was once again kind of remade, though it's actually a prequel to the John Carpenter version, the new Thing that came out in the late 2000s, I believe somewhere in the 2010, 11, 12 area. Now we go on to Pattern for Conquest, another one I have not seen, by George O. Smith, about Earthmen who are invaded by aliens and eventually start to fight back from within. Next is another Robert Heinlein one, Stranger in a Strange Land, one I have not read but really am kind of excited to now that I've heard about it. It's about a human being who was born on Mars and raised by Martians his whole entire life, who then goes home to Earth to meet his species and see his home for the first time. Next is another real obscure one that nothing came up for when I looked up for it. It was called Symphony for a Lost Traveler, and all I get is all kinds of stuff about creative content, but nothing about the actual plot line. Next is not a science fiction book reference at all, but a science book reference by Charles Darwin, which was called The Voyage of the Beagle, which is not about the beagle or his voyage through evolution, but the boat that he took to Galapagos Islands, where he did his studies and come up with a lot of his theories on evolution. Now next we have one of the most obvious ones out of the list, A Space Odyssey, the novel, written by Arthur C. Clarke, as well as the film made by Stanley Kubrick. I won't bother you talking about it, but I will say the interesting fact that Stanley Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke both wrote this together simultaneously. Now next we have The Diamond Age, and I will note that I have never read any post-cyberpunk novels and don't know much about the genre at all. The book was by Neal Stephenson, and it was called, once again, The Diamond Age, or A Young Lady's Illustrated Primer. And if anyone doesn't know what a primer was, it was an early school tool used really not too long ago, probably less than 50, 60 years ago. We were still using primers, and it was basically a basics to education and the different styles of classes, and also an introduction to Christianity. It kind of served both purposes. And I don't know, all it says is about a young girl coming of age in a world full of nanotechnology, so I know nothing about this. Next we have Citizen of the Galaxy. This is another Robert Heinlein one, and I haven't read this one either. This is about a young boy who is a slave and is bought by a kind master who kind of educates him and helps him along, but he gets kidnapped and kind of shoved around the galaxy, and it's a loose adaptation of Rudyard Kipling's Kim. We also have another one I'm not sure of, What Mad Universe, by Frederic Bronan, about a sci-fi editor hit by a rocket carrying a high-voltage generator which puts him into a parallel universe. Next we have The Forever War, another one I haven't heard of, by John Haldeman, about man warring with another species called the Taurans. The next is The Sentinel, and I'm sure there are a lot of different Sentinels out there, but I'm pretty sure this is a reference to the short story by Arthur C. Clarke that Stanley Kubrick wanted to kind of rewrite and make into the 2001 Space Odyssey whenever they got together for the project. And the last, Have Spacesuit-Will Travel, is a Robert Heinlein novel about a young boy who wins a jingle contest and, expecting to get a trip to Mars, gets a busted spacesuit, which he repairs, and then going to sell it to school, he uses its radio, where he picks up two aliens on the run, where they all end up getting kidnapped and zapped off into the universe. Well, Hitchhikers, that's all the trophies. Hope I didn't bore you talking about books for about 10 minutes here on this video, and I hope you enjoyed this and might go out and check out some of these films or books, because a lot of them are very great, and I'm kind of excited to pick up a few of them myself. Now, because of the 3-day delay, I obviously won't be able to upload my first impression video until the night of August 11th, after I've downloaded the game, played a good half hour on my first planet, and kind of edited it down and got it ready and uploaded to YouTube. So remember to stick your thumb out and subscribe if you want to hitch a ride with me, Mindless Bile, to the center of the galaxy.